The double corkscrew from Alton Towers' first roller coaster stands over the entrance plaza, a monument to thrills welcoming guests to their day at the resort. But how did they end up here? And how was the corkscrew the beginning of the theme park we know today?
In Alton Towers you will find you can leave your cares behind. Here's a new world just for you. There's so much to see and do. It's the only place to be. Fun for all the family at Alton Towers now.
Alton Towers, a world-class theme park located in Staffordshire, England, is a global name, a destination for families and thrill-seekers alike. This world-class theme park was born out of an English landowner and his desire to construct a grand Gothic home. The Talbot family had owned the land that is now Alton Towers since the early 1400s. But in 1801, it was the 15th Earl of Shrewsbury, Charles Talbot, that commissioned a large Gothic-style country house to replace a dilapidated hunting lodge. Construction began on a house of immense proportions, surrounded by landscape gardens, themselves filled with unusual structures. The plans became so large that the house was not complete upon his death in 1827. His nephew, John Talbot, the 16th Earl, took over construction and added the iconic banqueting hall and window we recognise today. It was the 18th Earl that first opened the grounds to the public in 1860. In subsequent years, crowds of 30,000 were not uncommon, attracted by acrobats, lion tamers, elephants, bands and fireworks. The house and grounds were still open at the outbreak of World War II, despite passing into private ownership a number of years earlier. Briefly commissioned by the Ministry of Defence, it was returned to its owners and continued as a successful leisure attraction. By the 1970s, the garden and house were joined by travelling funfair rides and other attractions such as a cable car and a funhouse. One man was instrumental in creating the Alton Towers we know today, and that was John Broome. John Broome began his career in property development, building up a multi-million-pound fortune by the time he entered his 30s. In 1973 he married Jane Bagshaw, the daughter of then owner of Alton Towers, Dennis Bagshaw. Broome saw the potential of the business, and he initially opened a trackless land train at the park. Continuing to buy up other concessions, including the fairground, cable cars and miniature railway, by the end of the decade he was appointed the chairman of Alton Towers. At that time, the booming theme park industry of the United States had yet to make its way to Britain. Broome had spotted the opportunity, and following research trips to America, had concluded he could turn Alton Towers into the UK's first theme park. As he called it, a stately home that's anything but stately. 1980 would be the year. Out would go the travelling fairground, and in would come a pay-one-price entry fee. But Broome still needed a standout attraction to headline the new venture, something that would capture the imagination of the British public and entice them to visit the new theme park. Looping rides were nothing new, with the first public looping ride opening at Coney Island, New York in 1895. Britain had its first looping roller coaster in 1902. The Topsy-Turvy Railway was located in the North Tower Gardens at Crystal Palace, London. Up until the late 1970s, roller coasters hadn't had much of a prominence in the United Kingdom. Old wooden beasts, largely confined to seaside pleasure grounds, was all the public had in terms of coaster thrills. The United States, however, saw a revival of the roller coaster during the same period. The success of Disneyland's Matterhorn bobsleds and its revolutionary tubular steel track led to a new generation of steel roller coasters. With increasingly complex elements and layouts, inversions were only a matter of time. The first modern inverting coaster opened in 1975 at Knott's Berry Farm. Corkscrew turned riders upside down twice through two consecutive corkscrew elements. It wasn't long before Europe got its first looping ride. Blackpool Pleasure Beach in the UK debuted the Revolution in 1979. This aerodynamic shuttle loop inverted riders twice, forwards and backwards through the same vertical loop. In 1979, a start-up theme park in rural Staffordshire didn't have the budget for the large custom rides being erected at American parks. In fact, John Broome concluded next year's headline attraction would have to be one that Alton Towers could lease instead of purchase. It also had to be able to fit into a small plot of land close to the old fairground in the Talbot Centre area of the park. Dutch manufacturer Vekoma had recently begun producing a double inversion roller coaster, with 3 opening in Europe the same year. Similar to Knott's Berry Farm's Corkscrew, this compact ride could be put together and taken down quickly, meeting the needs of the travelling showman. Work on the construction started just before Christmas, after Broome had persuaded German financiers to fund the £1.25 million needed for the installation. April 4th, 1980 was set for the opening day, and Alton Towers began advertising the ride as Europe's first double-looping roller coaster. Of course, this was not strictly true, as similar rides had already opened in Europe, and Blackpool's Revolution had been inverting riders twice, through the same loop, the prior year. National prime-time TV slots were secured, and the buzz around the ride was building.
We're now being pulled up to the highest point, some 85 feet, and within seconds these cars will be doing 65 miles an hour. Here we go.
Right, sir. No, close your eyes.
Why?
Keep them open. All the way. Up. Hey! Here we go. Whoa!
Opening day arrived, and the impact of the ride was clear.
What do you think?
It was brilliant, but it's scary. It's good when you go in the corkscrew though. Yeah, it's very good when you go upside down.
An estimated 40,000 people visited the park that day, with 6 to 9 hour queues reported. Traffic blocked nearby roads, and the park had to turn visitors away. It was safe to say the ride's installation had been a success.
Well, that's possibly the most terrifying 104 seconds I've ever spent. No, actually, it wasn't really that bad. But to think that people actually pay for the pleasure of going on this thing, I don't think I'll bother again.
The ride itself by today's standards was nothing spectacular, but in 1980 nobody had seen anything like it. After boarding the train and pulling down over-the-shoulder restraints, riders climbed a 75-foot lift hill before rounding a 180-degree curve. The train then plunged into the 68-foot drop, reaching the top speed of 40 miles per hour. Rising into a hill and rounding a curve, riders then dropped again before entering the ride's signature double corkscrew element. A flash of the on-ride camera followed before racing through more curves and helixes before returning back to the station. The ride only lasted 1.5 minutes, but the public loved it. There was no slowdown to the corkscrew's popularity in opening year. The attendance impact at the park was immediate, doubling from 500,000 in 1979 to over 1 million in 1980. The image of the corkscrew became ingrained in public consciousness. Featured on practically all Alton's marketing material, the iconic corkscrew looped high over the towers themselves.
There's no doubt about it. Alton Towers is a special magic for everyone. More than 60 rides and shows, all for the one price, $3.99. Now that's what I call value. So come along to Alton Towers. It's a lot nearer than Disneyland, wherever you are. It's nearer than you think.
A TV star in its own right, the corkscrew featured in numerous television programmes.
What are you laughing at? We're going on a corkscrew.
What? Now?
And a digitally rotoscoped version even featured in the opening of ITV's chart show. The success of the corkscrew allowed the park to expand. Buoyed by increasing visitor numbers and revenue, every year brought a new star attraction. Roller coasters, water rides and family attractions. Every one raising the bar and cementing Alton Towers as the #1 leisure destination in the UK. Not much changed for the corkscrew. Tussauds took over the management of Alton Towers, Talbot Centre became Festival Park, and giant custom thrill rides were constructed in far-flung corners. But the corkscrew sat still, next to off-the-shelf flat rides with no coherent theme. The ride that had catapulted the theme park to its initial success was overshadowed by its new cousins, each one pushing for bigger and better thrills. In 1999, Alton Towers opened with a brand new land, Ugland, a prehistoric themed area where the park advertised you could find yourself racing dinosaurs and escaping from Ugg beasts on the corkscrew, which takes you through rocky swamps.
The land where fun began is now open. Oakland at Alton Towers.
Ugland was in fact a light re-theme of the festival park area, and Corkscrew received newly painted trains and a few dinosaur bones around its queue. Corkscrew was joined in 2005 by Rita, Queen of Speed. This flashy Intamin accelerator coaster not only clashed with the Ugland theme, but pushed Corkscrew further into the shadows, hidden by Rita and her queue line. Corkscrew's days were numbered, and Alton Towers announced that the 2008 season would be its last. The ride had become increasingly rough in its final years, with riders banging their heads against the uncomfortable restraints. Sure, the ride held a nostalgic value for many, but its mild thrills couldn't match the resort's newer attractions. The last rides took place on Sunday the 9th of November, with the park holding a special event celebrating its first roller coaster.
It's the end of an era at Alton Towers today. The Corkscrew, Europe's first double-loop roller coaster, but you knew that, is being retired after thrilling the crowds for 28 years. In its time, it's carried over 43 million riders and travelled over 820,000 miles. Well, the park is now in its closed season, but has been opened especially today for thrill seekers to have one last ride.
Enthusiasts from across the country came to bid a fond farewell to what had become a classic. Guests at the event were told to expect an innovative and world's first replacement, and 1 month later, the resort submitted a planning application for a replacement roller coaster. This replacement would eventually be revealed as 13, with its unique drop track element. Alton Towers had one last surprise for Corkscrew fans. In order to recognise the attraction's place in the history of the park, the iconic double corkscrew element was retained. Sporting a new colour scheme, it was installed as a lasting monument in the main entrance plaza. Over its 28 years, Corkscrew thrilled 43 million riders, creating a lifetime of memories and shaping the resort we know. Today, those riders can still gaze at the double inversions, remembering their rides and the special place they had in the history of Alton Towers.